Go ahead.
So let's take a moment to set our motivation for being here today. And we can think that we're here because we want to understand the system of Tibetan debate more and more. And the reason we want to do that is that so that we can gain clarity, conviction, confidence in a correct view of how things are. But the reason we want to do that is that we want to be able to know, understand, and follow the paths that will bring us more compassion, that will bring us more loving kindness, that will bring us more equanimity, seeing all beings as equally precious, and so that we can develop the wisdom of how to help all beings in the most beneficial way possible, by understanding both dependent arising and the emptiness of inherent existence, which are just two sides of the same coin. So it's with that grand purpose, with that grand goal, that we do everything we do tonight, starting by settling in and chatting. All right. So let me open up once again by just asking what questions have come up. Have folks been having an opportunity to practice a little bit? Some, yeah. Oh, good. That's wonderful. Wonderful. Have any questions come up, or this they have? Okay. Happy to hear them if you'd like to share them.
Okay. So Sheila and I had a practice session this week, which was great. It was really, really good. But it raised a couple of questions.
Yes.
And we went back to the start. There's one that's, and I'm sorry if I put words in your mouth, Sheila, but I think we were both in agreement to this one, that it was a bit silly or confusing. But as we were going through something, it was going, posit the definition, and you're going, well, the definition of form, that which is suitable to be form, or the definition of color, that which is suitable to be color. It's like, well, that's not a definition. That's just repeating the name of it. Right.
No, that's a great question. And the way I understand that is that, first of all, let me put it to you this way. What that's saying is basically that there's no way to explain what it is. It's that you'll know it when you see it. It's like pointing a finger at it. It's like, it's that, I'm referring to that, you know? It's a completely, you can't deconstruct it any further, right? So like if I said, what's a square? I can say, well, it's a shape that blah, 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 you know? If I say, you know, like what is music? I can say, well, it's a series of sounds that blah, 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 blah. But if I say, like if a blind person were to ask me, what is color? I can't really explain it, if that makes sense. You know, so all you can do in that case is you can point at it. Now, that's very, very rare. It's very, very rare. We can't go around defining everything as that which is suitable as a blank. But in some very, very specific cases, that is what the tradition does. It's basically just a way of saying, like, well, I can't explain it. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You can do that. I mean, it seems like debate is such a precise, method that you can just finally say.
It is. No. So how about this? What if I say, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. But there's like 3 things, let's say, where the tradition is to just cut to the chase and say that, you know. But I would not, like, I mean, I'll go so far as to say you cannot do that with anything else that isn't like one of those like I don't know, 3 things, but like one of those like few things that they say, just skip over this one, basically. But for anything else, no, you have to say what, because what a definition really is, if you recall, is the quality of something, the property of something that allows you to know that that's what it is, right? So like, how can you tell whether something is this? Whatever you answer, that's the definition, So how can you tell that something is impermanent? Well, you have to check, does it not last without changing for more than a moment? If it doesn't last without changing for more than a moment, that if I see that it has that property, then I can know that the thing is impermanent. That's the telling sign. But it's just that if you ask, like, well, how can you tell if something is a color? There's no step back that you can take. That's one of the basics of experiential, well, one of the basics of experience, I suppose we would say. Like if somebody said, is an elephant impermanent? I could say, yeah. And if they said, well, how do you know? I'd say, well, it doesn't go 2 moments without changing, right? That's how I know. So I said, is green a color? I could say, yeah. And I said, how do you know? I mean, it kind of like, that's what I mean by color is the point, do you kind of see more or less what I'm saying? Right now, I could give other reasons for why green is a color, but all of the other reasons would be roundabout. Like I could say, because if you list all the colors, it will be included among them, or something. Like I could always find other ways to try to prove the point, as it were. But yeah. Anyway, I think I'll leave it for that. But the one takeaway is like, don't try this at home. Let the professionals, more or less. Or better yet, come up with a better definition of color.
Well,
Actually, that should have been, sorry?
We got into a whole Google rabbit hole of light waves and
Right.
all sorts.
Right. That's actually what I should have said all along. Honestly, like I said, why is that the definition of color? Say, oh no, well no, please, there are better definitions. Please tell me one. That's the thing. Yeah. I think you had more, Andrew, but Brett, I think you raised your hand.
Yeah, quick question. So if I imagine 2 people in a debate could settle on a definition of what they agree to be color, but if one person was colorblind or saw a color in a different way, could the debate continue?
I suppose it depends on what you'd be debating exactly, right?
Or if it was if it was fundamental in the debate to like agree upon this color being a certain way experientially.
That's a great question. I suppose that, so let me say, it really would depend on the context of the debate, on the specifics and the details. But if you kind of posit X hypothesis, right, like like as the premise here, that it is central to know something about which color something is for the debate to proceed, then I suppose the defender would have to say, I cannot know this at this time. Doubt, right? Which is very rare, because you probably wouldn't be debating things like that. It would be the equivalent at that point of like if somebody who has clairvoyance were debating with somebody who doesn't have clairvoyance, and the person with clairvoyance was like saying, but don't you agree that this thing that I see with my clairvoyance is true? All that the other person can say about that is doubt, meaning I have no way to know. The classic example in the text is take the subject, the space right in front of you, it follows that there is a ghost there right now. Like if somebody were to say that, then the correct answer for most people would be doubt. I wouldn't know if there was, and I wouldn't know if there wasn't. There's no way for me to ever know that at this point, you know, so. What else?
I guess linked to Brett's question actually then is that definition, because we were then going down, well, what's the definition of primary color and secondary color?
Mm-hmm.
And white appears in Daniel Perdue's book as a primary color,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which maybe in Tibetan ontology is, but
right.
in our definition of primary and secondary colors, and even the definition of secondary color being cloud and smoke and
right,
right. No, that's not the definite. So how would you debate with someone who's following that method, saying white is a primary color versus
so first of all, I'll come back and say something about white as a primary color, but second of all, let me answer your question. If somebody said white is a primary color, what is the definition given for primary color in the book again?
it just lists red, blue, white, and yellow.
It's like as the definition.
Color is something with a hue.
Yeah, so the definition of color is that which is suitable as a hue.
That which is suitable as a primary color.
That which is suitable as a primary color. Okay, got it. Okay. Yeah, that one's tricky, I think. So take the subject white, it follows that it is a primary color. I accept it as a primary color because it is suitable as a primary color, right? That's what it said.
Yep.
Honestly, I think at that point, if it came to that, I would just accept that, then we've established our terms, then that's what we mean by primary color, you know? But if I have some problem with that, then I have to think like, what is it about that doesn't add up to me? And then I can get at it some other way. So let me ask you, Andrew, take the subject now. Don't answer according to the book, answer according to your belief, okay? Take the subject white. It follows that it is not a primary color.
I accept.
It is not a primary color because
a primary color is only red, yellow, and blue.
Okay, take the subject primary color. It follows that it is only red, yellow, and blue because
that's the definition of primary color. Because those I'm just giving that. Because they're the colors that can't be mixed from another color.
Okay. See, so that's the thing. So suppose then the person accepts that white is a primary color, right? Then here's what you could say to them. You could say, okay, then take the subject white. It follows that it cannot be mixed. It cannot be created by mixing other colors because it is a primary color. You have accepted the reason, right? Now, if the person accepts, then you got them. Then you can show them their mistake. But the person could totally coherently say, there is no pervasion, meaning I'm not defining color. I'm not defining primary color as one that can't be gotten by mixing the others. You see? And then if that's the case, as long as you check that they're not implicitly accepting mistaken things, right? If you check, okay, then it follows that it can't be mixed. Why? Okay. Then it follows that that it exists in a rainbow because of being a primary color. The reason there's no pervasion. They're saying something coherent. So then I would just say, then let's just accept that we're using different definitions, and let's just debate according to the defender's definitions.
Okay.
You see what I mean? Because it only becomes a problem. Think about this. It only becomes a problem for them to believe that white is a primary color if they mean by primary color the same thing you mean by primary color. Then you can show them that they're wrong. you know. But if by primary color they mean a pleasant sound, you know, then it's just the primary color, or just the sounds that they're making, that they're assigning to that concept. You see?
Yep.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are two ways to think of primary colors, and we in the West have settled on the additive way. I think there's the additive and the subtractive. I forget. I think we've settled on the additive, but there's a subtractive one, which is just as valid, even if not as useful in certain contexts, which is how dyes mix with each other, you know? And my understanding is that red, yellow, blue, and white, if I'm not mistaken, are the colors that you can't create by mixing dyes together. But you can create the other colors by mixing those four dyes. Right, so it's interesting, like there's two, and again, so it shows that it's a matter of definition, right? Because yeah, now yeah, now the thing about cloud and smoke and so forth, that's, I think, very interesting, very interesting. And I had my own pet theory about that until recently, when somebody showed me that my pet theory might be wrong, but I'm still not 100% convinced. But my pet theory has been that that's referring to other things besides hue that go into making a color, like transparency and illumination and things like that. There are other facets that go into color perception besides just the hue itself, you know, hue in the Western sense of the word. And so I thought that maybe it's referring to that, like mist is translucent, you know, smoke is opaque, something like that. But I think I'm probably wrong that it's referring to that, but it was a nice thought while it lasted. The explanation that I received more recently is that the texts specify those as colors because, well, the first four, smoke, mist, dust, and cloud, those four things are things that as you approach them, if you move like into them, they tend to become invisible, you know. So they had to kind of specify, like, even though they tend to become invisible when you approach them, no, there's still a color that you can see. The last four things are, I think, colors in the more strict sense of, you know, things that you perceive visually that aren't shapes.
Yeah.
What else?
The only other one was then, because we were talking through color and light, and we worked through it, and we got to our root thesis was color is not an object. But we worked all the way through it, and then we identified that color is an object because it's mutually inclusive with light. But then, and to your point just then about your not being convinced, it came to that conclusion, but I kind of felt that, well, actually, I'm not convinced that someone couldn't come in the room and tell me something and I'd go, oh yeah, that's right, yeah, I'm wrong. So how do you know when you've got that? And I can't remember the levels, but it was like correct assumption versus valid. Is it valid cognition where you just know it and you can't?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's a great question. So the question, let me repeat the question the way I'm understanding it, is if you look at Buddhist philosophy of, you know, there's Buddhist epistemology, which is how, you know, how do we know what we know, right? And we talk about the 7 kinds of mind in terms of epistemology, and there it goes all the way from like wrong conception or wrong cognition altogether. Then there's doubt. There's different kinds of doubt. Then there's correct belief, And then there's valid cognition. And valid cognition can be either direct valid cognition or it can be inferential valid cognition, right? And so, but with valid cognition, there is no, basically, there's no possibility that you'll ever find out that you were wrong. Let's put it that way. So the question, as I'm understanding, is like, how do you know if you've gotten to that point? Well, first of all, if you're not sure whether you've gotten to that point or not, then you haven't. And this isn't like some mystical, I don't mean that in a mystical way. I just mean that like in a, if you're not sure, then by, then you can tell that you don't have certainty yet, right? Just on an obvious level. It's a really good question. I don't know that I've ever, at least off the top of my head, I can't remember having seen like a definition, like this is the sign that you've gotten there. But the way I tend to think of it, I don't know, is that at a certain point, it's like the penny drops, it clicks. It's almost like you kind of see it for yourself, not visually, not literally, but you go like, oh, and like it seems like, how could it not be? Like, how could it not be? And it's almost like not your life flashes before your eyes, but like all of these doubts that you had, all these thoughts, like one by one, it's like, oh yeah, but if so then this, yes, I'll get, and you kind of like get it all at once. And then from that point on, you could answer questions about it that you had never thought of before. This is just my own, all of these are just my own thoughts, right? But for example, if you don't know what a square number is, right? Then you can memorize, like, okay, 1 is a square number, 4 is a square number, 9 is a square number, and you can memorize a certain amount of them. But then if somebody said, well, what's the next square number? You'd say, well, I don't know. I haven't learned that yet, right? But if you know what a square number is, if you really know what a square number is, then for any number that somebody gives you and they ask you what's the next square number, it might take you some time to think, but you can give them an answer because you understand, like, how do you arrive at a square number? Like you can say, like, it's take the next number in the number line and multiply it by itself. So I can tell you what it is, And I used that example of a square number because there was a moment when the penny dropped for me, not in the sense I just meant, but like there's a moment where I had like this, like, oh, just a brief oh type of thing. And it was when I was teaching a class, an SAT class, which is a big kind of comprehensive exam that students in high school take to get into college. And at some point we arrived at the result. Like it was like I was showing them a math problem on the board, and it was like the answer is the square root of, let's say, 125 squared. And I said, so what's the square root of 125 squared? And there was silence. It's like, guys, what's the square root of 125 squared? And people were like, I don't have my calculator. I'm like, okay, what's the square root? And I put it on the board, what's the square root of x squared? They didn't know, right? Now, what's the square root of 2 squared? 2. They knew that, right? But it was clear that they didn't understand what was going on with square roots and squares, and that's where we have to find ourselves at that place on the path of learning something, where it's like, I kind of sort of get it, and I can tell you with things that I've already thought about or had experience with, but like beyond that, I don't know, And I think I would say, like, there's a threshold that you cross for a specific type of premise or something like that, where it's not like that anymore. And my instinct would be to say that that's a good candidate for how you know that you have an inferential valid cognition. Okay. Before we do some examples, any other questions, anything that is holding folks up, making it confusing or hard to perceive. Okay, so what I thought we could do today, if we have a brave volunteer who will match my braveness and even suggesting this crazy idea, I thought that if anybody would like to share a question that they have about the Dharma, about the Buddha Dharma, right? Then we could see if we can figure it out through debate. And this is very brave of me because I'm volunteering to be the one to debate it with you at the first round, and my ignorance will be on full display. So. I want to give you guys a minute to think about it and see if there's anything that you've wondered about or feel or have felt confused about. Buddy? Do you guys need another minute, or is the answer not really?
I've got one, but only if nobody else does.
Seems like it's all you.
So one of the girls, my study buddy at Jamyang, we're struggling with coming from a monotheistic background, struggling with guru devotion.
Ah, yes.
And what appears to be, the way it's phrased in some of the textbooks, almost appears to be blind faith worship of your guru. So we're trying to work out in our heads, is guru devotion just blind faith by another name?
Got it. Okay. Ooh la la. That's a very important question. It's a very important question. When I was planning to do this, I swear to you, I had the thought like, this will be okay. I mean, I might embarrass myself, but it will be okay as long as they don't pick guru devotion as the topic. Oh la 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 la. Okay. But I think the way the specific question you asked, I think should be okay. So let me just think about, you're willing to try that
Yeah,
back and forth? Okay, okay. So let me just think. Really, if anybody else does, we're all ears. Okay, that's okay, I'm kidding. So let me just think for a second how I might want to approach this. One moment. Okay, we'll just play around with it. We'll see where we get. I don't know, we might not get very far, but we'll try. So the subject just as much as we debated. Okay, ready? So take the subject, blind faith. It follows that you can posit a definition of it.
I accept.
Posit.
Trusting someone or something and doing whatever they say without thinking about it.
Okay.
Without thinking about no matter what the consequences may be.
Okay, just because all eyes are on me and I'm going to mess this up, let me just write that down, which is not something you would usually do, but trusting someone and doing whatever they say without
questioning.
Thinking,
Without questioning it.
Thinking or questioning. You said specifically what the consequences may be, or you said just in general?
Irrespective of what the consequences may be for you.
Okay. Irrespective of what the consequences may be for you. Okay. All right. So take the subject, Guru devotion. No, I'm sorry. Take the subject, and this is blind faith, blind faith. Take the subject, blind faith. It follows that its definition is trusting someone and doing whatever they say without thinking or questioning, irrespective of what the consequences may be for you.
I accept.
Okay. Now take the subject, Guru devotion. It follows that you can posit a definition of that.
I accept.
Posit.
Based on the readings so far, would be the same definition as blind faith.
Ooh, okay. Now, just to save us a little bit of time, I would try to catch you with this in the debate, but to save us a little bit of time, should I assume that you mean blind faith specifically with regard to a guru?
Yeah.
Okay. So specifically with regard to a guru. Okay. Take the subject, Guru devotion. It follows that it is recommended by Dharma teachers in the Tibetan tradition.
I accept.
Okay. Take the subject, a bodhisattva. It follows that they have Guru devotion.
I accept.
Take the subject, Shakyamuni Buddha, before he was enlightened, when he was a bodhisattva, it follows that he had Guru devotion.
Actually, no, I don't
So-
accept.
So
Am I
so
too
then
late?
you're too late, but there's a way to do it. So say the reason is not established, or you say why rather, why?
Why?
Because he was a bodhisattva. Now you can say there's no pervasion.
There's no pervasion.
Okay. You've actually, I made a mistake, so you've actually not even earned the tzah, but that's okay. So take the subject, so this is what I really should have said. It follows that whatever is a bodhisattva necessarily has Guru devotion.
There is no pervasion.
Okay, so why is what you're saying?
Yeah, why, sir? Yes, why?
Okay. It follows that whatever is a bodhisattva is necessarily on the path to enlightenment.
I accept.
It follows that a bodhisattva without Guru devotion is on the path to enlightenment. I should take the subject, a bodhisattva without Guru devotion. It follows that they are on the path to enlightenment.
I accept.
Take the subject, enlightenment. It follows that it is possible to achieve it without Guru devotion.
I accept.
Okay. So far, great. You're doing great. Like, so you're totally consistent. You're totally coherent, right? Okay. So now, let's try this. It follows that whatever is a guru necessarily is such that one should practice Guru devotion toward them.
Why?
Good. It follows that whatever is a guru necessarily is such that that the Tibetan lamas would say that you should practice Guru devotion toward them.
I accept.
Take the subject, a cult leader. It follows that the Tibetan lamas would say that you should practice Guru devotion toward them because they are a guru.
I accept.
Take the subject of cult leader. It follows that the Tibetan lamas would say that you should trust and do whatever they say without thinking or questioning, because they would say that you should practice Guru devotion toward them.
I accept.
Take the subject, a cult leader who says, take the subject, a cult leader. It follows that the Tibetan lamas would say that if they told you to kill yourself, you should kill yourself.
I think I accept. Yes, I accept.
Take the subject, Tibetan lamas. It follows that they know the difference between Dharma and non-Dharma.
I accept.
It follows that they would advise you to practice Dharma and not to practice non-Dharma.
I accept.
Take the subject, killing yourself. It follows that it is non-Dharma.
I accept.
Take the subject, Tibetan Lama. It follows that they would tell you not to kill yourself.
I accept.
It follows that they would tell you that if somebody tells you to kill yourself, you shouldn't do it.
I accept.
It follows that they would tell you that if a cult leader tells you to kill yourself, you shouldn't do it.
There is no pervasion.
Okay. Take the subject. Take the subject, the Tibetan Lama. It follows that they would tell you the following. If somebody tells you to kill yourself, don't do it unless they're a cult leader.
I accept.
Wow. Take the subject, a cult leader. It follows that there is a way to distinguish if somebody is it or if somebody is not it. Meaning there's a way to distinguish if somebody is a cult leader or not.
I accept.
Okay. So it follows that you can posit the definition of a cult leader.
I accept.
Posit.
Cult leader is someone who has a group of people, at least one person or more, who does whatever they ask with blind faith that what they're asking is for that group's benefit, whether it's of harm or not to the individual.
Let me just run this by you again. Someone who has one person or more who does whatever they ask with blind faith.
Blind faith, yeah. Irrespective of the consequences.
Irrespective of the consequence. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So just to make it formal, take the subject cult leader. It follows that its definition is someone who has one person or more who does whatever they ask with blind faith.
I accept.
Take the subject. Let me actually think about that again. Hold on. Take the subject of Tibetan Lama. It follows that they would say that as long as somebody follows someone with blind faith, then so should you.
Why?
Take the subject of Tibetan Lama. It follows that they would say that if somebody is a cult leader, then you should do whatever they say.
I accept, but with the terminology of guru, not cult leader. Why?
Then given that I heard what you said, let me then just do something else here. Take the subject guru. It follows that you can posit the definition of it.
I accept.
Pause it.
A teacher. A teacher. Yeah, a teacher.
Okay. This is fun. All right. Take the subject guru. It follows that its definition is teacher.
I accept.
It follows that whatever is a teacher necessarily is a guru.
I accept.
Okay, take the subject me. It follows that I'm a guru because I'm a teacher.
I
You have
accept.
accepted the pervasion. It follows that if I tell you to kill yourself, you should do it.
I accept according to. I
Don't.
accept.
Please don't. Please don't accept it, let alone do it.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Don't
worry.
Okay. Okay. I want to do this right. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Ready? I'm before I do my next one, I'm going to say a sentence. I'm going to say, and I mean this from my heart. Don't do whatsoever a guru tells you to do. I just said that. Okay. Okay. Take the subject, me. It follows that you should do whatever it says.
Because you're a guru. I
According
accept.
to you. Okay. Take the subject you. It follows that it should not do whatever a guru says because it should do whatever I say. And I said not to do whatever a guru says.
Yes, difference between my guru and a guru. I accept.
Okay, take the subject me. It follows that if I tell you to kill yourself, you should not kill yourself because you should not do whatever the guru says. You've asserted the reason.
I should not do whatever you say. I've already said that you're a guru and I have to do whatever you say. I don't know how to answer that.
Jenna, do you have a thought real quick? I saw you raising your hand.
I'm just wondering why you don't just deal with his definition of guru and show that it's flawed, that it's not a teacher, any teacher.
Well, right. I was just trying to. We could approach this an infinite number of ways, right?
Right.
And I think we're getting there. Okay. I lost my train of thought. Let me just think for a second. You didn't know how to answer, right?
Yeah, no, it's probably to Jana's point though. I realize that my definition of guru is
Right.
not mine.
So what you have to do, you have to give an answer. I want to illustrate this for the sake of illustrating a debate. So where we were is take the subject me. It follows that if it tells you to kill yourself, you shouldn't kill yourself because you shouldn't do whatever a guru says.
Subject you, it follows that I shouldn't do whatever you say because I shouldn't follow whatever the guru says, whatever a guru says. I accept.
Take the subject me, it follows that you should do whatever I say because of being a guru, because of it being a guru, me being a guru.
I accept.
Oh, I don't think you do.
No, maybe I don't. No, I don't accept.
No, you don't. But why not?
because, sorry, repeat your sentence.
Take the subject me, it follows that you should do whatever it says because it is a guru.
Ras is a guru. So there is the sign, but there's not the privation. There is no privation.
Ah, it follows that it is not the case that you should do whatever a guru says.
I accept.
Sa. That's an important sa. So you've just concluded, you've just said to me, right, that you should not do whatever a guru says.
Yes.
Ah, okay. Take the subject me. It follows that a Tibetan Lama would say that you should do whatever it says.
I accept.
Aha. Take the subject me. It follows that a Tibetan Lama would tell you that you should not do whatever it says because it told you not to do whatever it says.
I've got the negatives. The subject Tibetan Lama. Sorry, please repeat.
Of course, the subject is still me. It follows that a Tibetan Lama would tell you you shouldn't do whatever it says because it told you not to do whatever it says.
Subject us, because it told you not to do. So the reason is there, the sign is there, because subject Gus, it told you not to do whatever it says.
Everybody witnessed it.
Reason is there. So therefore, Tibetan Lama says should do whatever it says. There is it should do what it says. There is privation. There is the sign, there is privation. Therefore, I have to accept.
Okay, all right, here we go. So take the subject me, it follows that a Tibetan Lama would tell you that you shouldn't do whatever it says. That's what you just accepted. I think, right?
I think I did as well, but I don't know how.
So what we would do if we were continuing the debate is we would work back through it and see how we got to this point, right? Like I would prove the same point to you as many times as it takes, you know, until it becomes very clear to you. We could have like basically the same little back and forth a few times until it becomes clear to you what just happened, right? But I don't want other people to feel bored, I suppose. So let's pause there for at least for a little bit. And let's open this up to questions, observations, thoughts. And thank you, by the way, so much, Andrew, for doing that with me. Any thoughts, questions, observations? Yes, please, Linda.
This is a really general one, but Gus, thank you for being vulnerable enough to take this on and show us how you help yourself remember things along the way when it's a stretch, because I feel a little better about my own confusion now. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for saying that, yes. Anything else? Was that helpful, unhelpful? A little helpful? Okay. Could you guys follow what was going on? Yeah, nice. Look at that. Doing it. That's great. Does anybody want to take a stab at the answer to the conundrum here? In terms of the topic itself? In fact, if anybody feels like they feel confident, hold on, I didn't hear you, but don't say it. If you feel like you know the answer to the question, would you be willing to debate it with me and show the other angle of it? Yeah,
Yeah, I guess if you want me to.
give it a try. Thank you. Okay, So let's do this real quick.
Waiting
Um,
for people to do it. If they want.
sorry?
Other people want to do it,
Oh, no, we're not getting off the hook that easy. Okay. So let me start from where we had started. Take the subject, go to devotion. It follows that you can posit a definition of it.
I accept.
Posit.
Um, Guru devotion is devotion to a teacher who is reliable and qualified and compassionate and to teach the Dharma.
Okay, nice. Take the subject devotion in that definition you just gave. It follows that you can explain what it means.
I accept.
Posit.
And, devotion is correctly listening to the Dharma with the intent of, with an open mind and with an intention to purify one's negativities and afflictions.
Okay. That's good. That's good. I'll stop the debate there again, just for the sake of for those who aren't like engaged, it might kind of get tedious. But does anybody want to take a different stab without debating, just a different stab at what do we mean by devotion when we say Buddha devotion? Okay, this goes a little bit beyond debate as such, but if you'll indulge me, I'll just say a few words about this because I think this is such an important topic that got raised. The word that gets translated as devotion from the Tibetan is the same word that describes the relationship you have with your physician, with your doctor, right? It's a type of like a healthy, trusting relationship where you're not just blindly doing whatever they tell you, you're not just blindly believing whatever they say, but you're also not kind of constantly challenging their authority and saying, like, who says, like, I don't think so. Like you're kind of relying on their expertise while maintaining your own common sense and your own judgment, So, I mean, I also, I'm biased to think that it's probably also similar to the kind of relationship one should have with one's therapist. If one's therapist is a behavioral therapist, at least, I don't know. Like if there's something that's bringing you suffering and the therapist says, well, here's a skill that can help with that, try this. If you say, no, it's not going to work, then therapy isn't going to get anywhere. If you try it, and then you come back and say it didn't work, that's totally different, right? Or if you come back and say it did work, that's different still. And it's still different if I say, why don't you try this? And you say like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's fine, right? That's fine, right? So with the guru, we also want to show respect in certain ways because it's not like a therapist. A therapist is doing certain things, but like a guru is giving us everything that's Dharma in our lives. So we also want to show them respect. We want to stand up when they come into the room and so on and so forth. But we definitely don't want to just have blind faith. And the teachings are very explicit on this. So there's a past life of Shakyamuni Buddha when he was a bodhisattva, where he had a guru and he had deep guru devotion. And the guru said to all his disciples, he said, I want such and such, just go and steal it for me, and all the other disciples hurried to do it. And the bodhisattva, Shakyamuni, just sat there peacefully. And then the guru said, why aren't you going to do what I said? Don't you want me to be happy? And Shakyamuni said, how could stealing ever make anybody happy? Right? And the guru said, you're the only one who understood. You're the only one who understood. Right? So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because I think that's a really important point. Okay. So my thought would be to do some breakout rooms now, give you guys a chance to practice with each other. And maybe what I can do, I'll give you guys a few minutes to kind of get into it. And then I'll jump into different breakout rooms. Just check if anybody's stumped, has any questions or anything like that. I'm not going to be like observing you and taking notes or anything like that. Don't worry. But does that sound like a good plan? Yeah. Okay. So I thought of two topics that, in fact, I'll put them in the chat. Will everybody still be able to see the chat if they're in a breakout room? Does it work that way? I don't know. Well, I'll write it down, and if you want, you can just make a note of it. I'm not sure.
You can copy it and take it with us.
Oh, perfect. Yes, brilliant. Okay. So the first one is this. Second one is this. Okay. These are my suggestions. You can do either one, and if you have time, you can do both. But these are my suggestions of how the challenger can open the debate. This is the first thing the challenger can say. Then the defender can give an answer. And then you guys can take it from there. But what I encourage you to do is, I picked these because my hope is that whatever way the person answers, there's going to be some like interesting ways that you can try to challenge it, right? Each of these has a correct answer, but still, there's a lot of like counterintuitive things, I think, that you can bring up on the basis of that. Okay. All right. So then let me open up the breakout rooms. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Perfect. Okay, I'm just going to assign it automatically, so it will be random. All right, guys, see you soon. You are in room 4. Can you do that? Can you join that? You're muted, but. All right. So, I checked in with each group and everybody seemed to be like completely on top of it, except for one group. What's a joke? That's a joke. That's for everybody to think like, oh no, we were the only ones. Okay. So, yeah, I had a thought before. What was the thought that I had? I forget, it doesn't matter. Thoughts, questions, observations, concerns. Yeah, Claire?
I was just saying to Jana, it was for me as a defender, it's quite, I always feel quite limited in my, because I can only say why or accept. And often it's the way I would phrase it that is different, or I would like to clarify. And I end up either accepting something that I don't quite want to accept, or I say why, and then but I don't get the chance, to say, okay, this is how I would say it, or
Right. So
explain the
first,
nuance sometimes, like, is it physical?
Right.
Is it not physical? Well, I want to specify what I mean,
Right. So a couple of things. One is, if never accept something that you don't fully confidently accept. Right? I mean, the one exception to that is if you say why, you have to accept one or the other, right? You have to accept either way. But don't accept a consequence that you feel like, nah, that's not true because that's not really what I mean. Always say no. If you do just that much, a lot of what you're describing, I think, will be resolved, because it will come to the fore, like because the other person is making an assumption, and sooner or later, it's going to feel like what you're holding on to them will seem absurd in light of their assumption. And then they're going to ask you, like, this isn't the case because, and then you're going to have your opportunity, right? That's one thought. Another thought is that there's a reason that this is built to be so constraining. It's so that we can't, a normal conversation isn't constraining like this, and that's why it's a mess. That's why we often don't get anywhere, because we're always kind of jumping in and saying like, well, it's this, but it's also that, like, and then like it always kind of spirals into something else and morphs and so forth. This is constraining in such a way that you'll be very clear at the end what it is that you know and what you don't know, and what you believe and what you don't believe, and so on and so forth. If you get to the very end of a debate, the other person has basically given up or whatever, and you feel like your side hasn't been heard, then you can say, can we switch? Can I be the challenger now? And then you can explain what you meant as the challenger. You see? But the secret, and it's very hard emotionally at first, but the secret is to basically like relax, let go of everything, close your eyes, drop everything. You don't have anything to prove, nothing. Just hear what the person is saying to you, think about what they just said, and answer the question that they asked. That will steer you through everything. So for example, if somebody said, it follows that whatever has a mind necessarily is a sentient being. It follows that whatever has a mind necessarily is a sentient being. Right? Now, this is going to sound weird, perhaps, but if somebody said that to me, my answer would be, why? They said, oh, it follows that there's something that has a mind but is not a sentient being. I would say, I accept. Right? Now, that sounds weird, right? But if they said posit something that has a mind but it's not a sentient being, can anybody think of something?
AI.
Buddha.
So somebody said it. I wouldn't say AI at this point yet, but
Buddha?
that's a good guess. Yes, the subject, the Buddha. Yeah, the Buddha. The Buddha has a mind. The Buddha is not a sentient being, because by definition, a sentient being, the word that gets translated as sentient being, is a limited being, a being that doesn't have omniscience, right? Now, whatever has a mind necessarily is a being. That I would accept, but that's not what I got asked. See? Linda, did you have a question from it?
I did. I was just, and I could probably take this offline to the group. But the second question on discussion about take the subject of person, it follows that it is a mind stream. I got caught on sort of the conventional definition of a person versus, impermanence. And anyway, I would be curious to know, there are so many ways a debate can go and so on. So I was curious if anyone had clarity on, like a really interesting way to approach that.
People are being so modest. Some of you guys had really good thoughts on this, I know. Brett, are you about to say something, or?
But we debated, or Trey and I debated the other one, but can you repeat the question?
Yeah, take the subject. Oh, you mean the prompt or whatever was take the subject of person. It follows that it is a mind stream. And
Well, the particular thing you were looking at was the definition. Sorry.
yeah. So I think if a person were to stretch and from a Buddhist standpoint, say that a person is only a mind stream, that could be argued, or conventionally, a person could be, a body and a brain and a mind. And anyway, so some of this again comes down to definition and what direction, I guess, to take it.
Yeah. So just for the sake of time, let me say, I think the first thing I would do probably in this case is to start by getting the person to posit a definition of person, just to make sure we're talking about the same thing, right? And I might even also get them to posit the definition of a mind stream to make sure we're talking about the same thing there too. One question that came up in one of the groups was, what if we just don't agree on the same definition? And I know this is a question we keep coming back to, right? So excuse me if I'm being redundant, but because it keeps coming up, I just want to keep emphasizing this. If somebody posits a definition, they say, well, I'm defining this group of sounds, like I'm to me, when I say Buddha, I'm referring to this concept, right? That's what I mean by it, right? All you can do at that point is you can make sure that they're staying consistent and coherent. Like an example that I used with one of the groups was, if somebody defines person as whatever has body and mind, let's say, right? Then I just want to make sure, then when you say person, then would you say that every person can learn any human language? You can't say that if you mean anything with the body and mind, because a hamster can't just learn any human language, and a hamster has a body and mind. See what I mean? So like, if this is how you're defining person, okay, fine, then you can say a hamster is a person, but then you can't say that a person, whatever is a person, necessarily can learn any language, right? You can't say that whatever is a person necessarily is a mammal, right? Because a fish is a person by your definition. In other words, you're checking to make sure that the person isn't equivocating, that they're not giving you one definition, but operating by a different one, right? But if it's consistent, if no, this is what I mean when I say person, this is all that I mean by it, then there's no debating that, because there's no disagreeing with that. You can't, there's no right or wrong about that ever. Anybody can say, when I say, "Buh," I'm referring to this, and you can't be like, "No, you're not." If you are, you are. I just check, because it's not a fact about the world. It's just a convention that you're establishing. Now, what you can do, like, let's say that somebody says the definition of person is, well, I'll just even say, the definition of person is whatever has a body and mind. Okay. All right. Take the subject of fish. It follows that it's a person. I accept. Right. Okay. So that's consistent. Take the subject Buddha. It follows that it's a person. I accept. Consistent. Take the subject a goose. It follows that it's a person. I accept. Consistent. Right. But then I can say, right, take the subject of person. It follows that your definition of it is very different from the definition used by the vast majority of English speakers. Yeah, that we can debate, because that is a fact about the world. But as long as the person is willing to accept, yeah, the way I'm defining person is different from the way most people do, and as long as what they're doing is consistent, then there's nothing to debate. Not because this system can't reach it, but just because there can't be any disagreement, really. You cannot like it. Because they take the subject person, it follows that I hate the way you define it. That's fine. But you can't say it's wrong. It can't be wrong, right? Clara, and then I realize we're over time, so I don't want to keep folks too long, but Clara, if you wanted to.
Yeah, just quickly, and I brought that up earlier, is just that I guess within this context, we would probably like to debate in accordance with what the Buddhist teachings are. So for me, I didn't know this particular definition according to Buddhism of that, that a dog would be a person. So for me, the question is, how do we ensure that, I would just like to not just debate all of our respective individual definitions, but make sure that we're debating it according to the official definitions in Buddhism. So how can we integrate that?
Absolutely. So let me actually say this. If anybody needs to go, by all means, please, of course, feel free to go. Just make sure you dedicate, when you go. But if anybody wants to stick around for a few minutes, I'm happy on my end to stick around for a few minutes and answer any more questions. So starting with this one, that the first thing I would say is to be very clear when we say the official Buddhist definitions, to be very clear what we mean by that. When a Buddhist text says the definition of blank is da 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 da, all that is that's orienting you to how that word is being used in that text. Right? They're not making some claim about the world, So when they say the definition of person, and here is the official definition of person, right? Definition of person is a being labeled in dependence on one or more of the five aggregates, right? This isn't some revelation about like, oh my gosh, that's what a person is. No, all that it's saying is like, when we say person, this is what we mean in this text. And if you go to different schools of Buddhism, they're going to have different definitions. If you go to different tenets systems, they're going to have different definitions. And you can't say that one is right, one is wrong, because again, that's just not what that means, right? So if you want to debate using an official definition, first of all, you have to decide which school and which tenet system, right? And then the only thing you can do is you can agree. You can say in advance, do you want to debate about this? Do you want to use this set of definitions to debate about this? And if the person says no, then you find somebody else to debate with, right? But if the person says yes, then there you are, then you can debate about that. You can kind of find a text that has the definitions laid out, and you can say, let's work with these definitions. Okay, this is the definition of this. Cool. Okay, then let's debate about that. Does that help?
So
Yeah.
So along those lines, so is there a way to change your definitions within the debate?
You can, but the only way to do that in an intellectually honest way is to is like, if you're the defender, is to accept. Well, so the challenger doesn't really have like a definite, because the challenger can just say anything. So the challenger can change their definition around. And again, the defender, all the defenders do is hear what they're saying and just give one of the answers. So that the challenger has no epistemological commitments to anything. You can't say to the challenger, you contradicted yourself. That doesn't matter, right? So the defender is the one that is holding a definition, right? So if the defender changes their mind about what a definition is, in essence, what they need to do is they need to accept it's somehow or other, like, yes, it's true, there is no pervasion. Yes, it's true, the reason is not established, whatever it may be, and get it sa, that they posited the definition wrong, meaning not what they meant, right? And then in that case, that basically the way it would play out is like, say, take the subject, a chair, it follows that you can posit the definition, I accept, posit, something that you can sit on. Take the subject, a chair, it follows that its definition is something you can sit on, I accept. Take the subject, a horse, it follows that it is a chair because it is something you can sit on, you asserted the pervasion. It's like, oh crap. Okay, there's no pervasion, right? Sa, it follows that it is not the case that whatever you can sit on is necessarily a chair, I accept. Sa, it follows that the subject, take the subject chair, it follows that its definition is not something you can sit on, I accept. Sa, take the subject chair, it follows that you can posit its definition correctly, I accept. And now the person can give a new definition. You see? Did you follow what I did there? Right? It's like, take the definition that they gave, and all I'm doing, so if somebody said to, if a person said to me, posit the definition of chair, and they said it's something you can sit on, I wouldn't just say like, oh, okay, I would say, I bet they haven't thought this through, right? And I would say, okay, then a horse is a chair then, right? And the moment they say no, I say, okay, then that's not the definition you meant to give, right? But if I said a horse is a chair, then and they said yes, right? I'd say, in that case, is a horse man-made? No. Okay, so a chair doesn't have to be man-made? No. Right? And if I went about it every which way, and it was clear that when they said chair, they really just meant something you sit on, okay, that's a very, very weird definition of chair. But if that's your definition, that's your definition. You see? Like I could also say, like, take the subject chair. It follows that if you discuss it with anybody out in the world, you're going to get very confused. Fine, if they say I accept, fine. You see? And notice, once again, this doesn't mean anything goes. Like, you can't do that. It's not that fine if it's something that is a fact about the world. If it's a fact about the world or about logic or something like that, then you can, because then there's a reason and you can prove it one way or the other. But if it's just a convention, a definition, then you can't, there's nothing to prove. Linda?
Oh, just really quickly, I appreciate that, because not only does it give a starting point that's clearer for the debate, but it also leaves a huge amount of, it avoids debating the definition, the right definition, right? There's a lot of flexibility, I guess.
Right, exactly. And again, I know I keep repeating myself, but note that you can debate whether something is the standard accepted definition or not. If somebody were to say, if somebody were to claim the subject chair, it follows that when people refer to it, they mean anything that you can sit on. Oh, no, they don't. That I can prove to you. You see? So it all depends what it is that you as a challenger are actually interested in finding out or in helping the other person figure out. If again, like if you're trying to help them figure out that their understanding of what a chair is, if they like, like they're learning the language, let's say they're learning English and they misunderstood what a chair is, right? Then you debate, okay, here's why this isn't what people means. But if what people mean, but if you're trying to debate a phenomenon, then it doesn't matter. And if you want to get at if when you say chair you mean something else, then you can just, and if that's what you want to debate about, then just stop using the word chair and say, take the subject and then give your definition of what it is you mean, right? And then debate about that. You see? I'm purposely not giving you an example because I don't know the definition of chair that I would accept. All right. Thank you guys for sticking around. Let's just dedicate before we stop for today, and we can think everything that we did here today. It creates certain patterns in our minds, certain potentials, certain directions that our minds are liable to take going forward. And so we think, may these things that have been left behind in our minds lead us only in ways that will bring us more and more compassion, more and more loving kindness, more and more equanimity, a sense of deep caring and responsibility for helping others, and in ways that will only bring us clear understanding of how things work, of how things exist, of how to best benefit everybody. If you feel a connection to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, or if you'd like to join, and if no matter what, we can also think, may these things that have been left behind in our mind streams ripen for us in ways that will make situations conducive for Lama Zopa Rinpoche to be able to manifest again, to teach us right away, that we may be able to recognize his reincarnation, may continue to benefit all sentient beings in the best possible ways. And then if you'd like, you can also end with the dedication that Lama Zopa Rinpoche would always recommend. You can think, due to the three-time merits of all universal, due to the three-time merits accumulated by myself, all the Buddhas, and all universal sentient beings, which definitely exist as dependent arisings, but which are completely empty of inherently existing from their own side. May I, who definitely exist as a dependent arising, but who am completely empty of inherently existing from my own side, quickly attain the state of perfect enlightenment, which definitely exists as a dependent arising, but which is completely empty of inherently existing from its own side, so that I, who definitely exist as a dependent arising, but who am completely empty of inherently existing from my own side, may quickly lead all universal sentient beings who definitely exist as dependent arisings, but who are completely empty of inherently existing from their own side, to that perfectly enlightened state, which definitely exists as dependent arising, but which is completely empty of inherently existing from its own side. May I do that by myself alone, who definitely exist as a dependent arising, but who am completely empty of inherently existing from my own side. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
reminder, we don't meet next week. You just double check that I'm saying the truth. Yes, I am. Of course, I strongly encourage you guys to still get together and practice, but I won't be here next week. And but I look forward to seeing you guys the week after that. All right. All right, everybody. Be well.
Thank you, Gus, and everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.